Hello, dear aspirants. Actually, I have learned something new today. I would like to share it with you. This is what I learned. You'll be asking, this is the name of our academy. What is new thing which I learned today? The thing is, usually when I start the class, I used to say, hello, dear aspirants, and welcome to Epitomize. The thing is, the pronunciation of this word is not epitome, it's epitome. The thing is, I recently get to know the real pronunciation. What I want to share it with you is yes, the thing is, it is never too late to learn new things, and especially for aspirants like you who are you are actually going to learn new things every day because you are reading polity, history, geography. These are the things which you may not have learned in your what you say in your childhood or in your previous years of your life. So you'll be learning it for the first time. But what I want to say is, even though let's say you started with polity, you are reading the Lakshmikant for the first time, and you might have noticed for the people who have started the preparation just now, like they are freshers, and for the people who have already started the preparation or in 1 2 years you have been in your preparation, just recall those days when you started the preparation, you first time you were reading the Lakshmikant. So how do you feel? Like, even though first time, obviously, when you are reading the Lakshmikant, you will be feeling like, okay, most of the things I'm not able to understand. Okay, this is what most of the people feel. There are some people, obviously, some students who have much knowledge, pre-existing knowledge. Those people might have understood very easily. But for most of the students who are going to read the Lakshmikant for the first time and they don't have any pre-existing knowledge in the polity, Indian polity subject, so there will be it is very difficult for them to understand, even the smallest things. And when you are reading it for the second time, the third time, the fourth time, you will be noticing that in every read, you are learning new things. Obviously, in the first read, you might have not understood those things, but you will be learning those things in the second read, in the third read, in the fourth read. So, what I wanted to say was, yes, this is the learning process. You will be learning. Like, it is a step by step. You will be learning everything, and in first read itself, you will not understand everything. Okay, so that is the thing. With that note, I would say that in today's class, we'll be learning new things, I hope. So, what is today's classes? It is UPSC PYQ analysis, and we are doing topic wise PYQ analysis. Today's topic would be union and state legislature from the Indian polity. So, let us start with the today's class. So, the first question is, with reference to the finance bill and the money bill in Indian parliament, consider the following statements. Statement 1: when Lok Sabha transmits the finance bill to the Rajya Sabha, it can amend or reject the bill. Statement 2: when the Lok Sabha transmits the money bill to the Rajya Sabha, it cannot amend or reject the bill. It can only make recommendations. Statement 3: in the case of disagreement between the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, there is no joint sitting for the money bill, but a joint sitting becomes necessary for a finance bill. So this question was asked in 2023. So what you guys have to do is, once the question is being displayed, try to answer these questions from your pre-existing knowledge, whatever you read. Okay, for the freshers who have like very less pre-existing knowledge, or you already gave one or two attempts, just try to answer this question. If you are getting the right answer, it's okay. If you are not able to get the right answer, then also it's okay. Anyway, we are going to explain how we are going to solve this question, so no issues. But before seeing the explanation, just pause and try to answer the question yourself. So, if you see here in the first statement, what they have given is the Lok Sabha, when it transmits the finance bill to the Rajya Sabha can amend or reject the bill. That's what they are saying. So the basically this question is about the finance bill and the money bill. And the first statement is saying, when the Lok Sabha transmits the finance bill to the Rajya Sabha, it can amend and reject the bill. Is that so? No. The Rajya Sabha does not have the power to amend or reject the finance bill. So what we can say is this statement is a wrong statement. The Rajya Sabha can only make some recommendation. Okay, it does not have power to reject the bill. Then second statement is when the Lok Sabha transmits money bill to Rajya Sabha, it cannot amend or reject the bill. Is that so? It can only make recommendation. So whenever you read about this money bill, you will be reading about this also. Ki money bill can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha. This is the first point we will be reading. And what is the second point? Whenever this money bill is passed in the Lok Sabha and it is transmitted to the Rajya Sabha, then the Rajya Sabha has some powers. Okay, what are these powers or options? We can say Rajya Sabha has some options. What are the options? One option is to make recommendation. Okay, or to accept this bill, to pass this bill as it is. These are the only options. The Rajya Sabha does not have power to reject the money bill or to make amendments in the money bill. Okay, so rather the Rajya Sabha has only the power for accepting the money bill, or else it has another option, that is to make recommendation to the Lok Sabha, and it is up to the Lok Sabha whether to accept this recommendation made by Rajya Sabha or not. Okay, it can accept or reject the recommendations. So in this statement, yes, this is correct. After the Lok Sabha transmitting the money bill to the Rajya Sabha, the Rajya Sabha cannot amend or reject the bill. It can only make recommendations. Yes, this is true. Then third statement says that in the case of disagreement between the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, there is no joint sitting for money bill. First, let us see this part of the statement. Then we'll go to the second part of the statement. The first part says that when there is a disagreement between Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, then there is no joint sitting for the money bill. Is that true? Yes, because the Rajya Sabha does not have the power to make, amendments or to reject the money bill. So whenever, within 14 days, if the Rajya Sabha is not accepting or it is not reacting to the bill automatically considered as it is passed in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So in this case, there is no need for a joint sitting. Okay. So in case of money bill, there is no need for joint sitting. There is no provision for joint sitting. Okay. The joint sitting usually happens when there is a disagreement between the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha in case of an ordinary bill. But in case of a money bill, there is no such provision. And the second part of this statement says that, but a joint sitting becomes necessary for a finance bill. Is that so? In most cases, if you see, the finance bill is actually similar to the procedure which is followed for the ordinary bills. And in that case, when there is a disagreement between Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha regarding any finance bill, yes, there is a provision for joint sitting. The president may call both the houses for joint sitting and they may come up with a solution. So this statement is actually a correct statement because the first part of the statement is also correct. The second part of the statement is also correct. So how many of the above statements are correct? So nowadays they are asking how many of the statements are correct. Okay, this pattern is followed in last few years actually. Before that they used to ask which of these statements are correct. Now they are asking how many of the above statements are correct. So if you see here, only 2 of the above statements are correct. So the answer would be option B, only 2. Then if you see here, yes, this is the procedure related to the money bills. So first point is money bills can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha. Okay, the money bill cannot be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. It can only be introduced in Lok Sabha. This is the first point you have to remember. And the second point is, before introducing the money bill in the Lok Sabha, it is obligatory that they need to get the permission from the President of India. Without the prior permission or the recommendation of the President of India, they cannot introduce the money bill in the Lok Sabha. This is the second point you have to remember. Then money bill are considered government bills and can only be introduced by a minister. See, we know that there are, when you say the member of parliament, we have council of ministers and we have private member. Who are these private members? One of the previous video we actually talked about it. Private members are the members of the parliament who are not the ministers. Okay, apart from the council of ministers, the other members of the parliament are called as private members. Okay, so if you see here, what they are saying is money bill are considered as government bill. Yes, money bill is considered as a government bill. That's why this money bills can only be introduced by a minister. It cannot be introduced by a private member. This thing you have to remember. Then, after a money bill is passed by Lok Sabha, it is transmitted to the Rajya Sabha for consideration. The Rajya Sabha has limited power. The Rajya Sabha has very limited power in case of a money bill. What are the options it has? It can either accept, okay, it can either pass the bill in the Rajya Sabha. The second option is it can either make a recommendation, and it is up to the Lok Sabha whether to accept these recommendation or not. Okay, so these are the only powers, and the Rajya Sabha does not have power to reject or amend the money bill. Okay, then the Rajya Sabha has limited power with regard to the money bill and can only make recommendations, and it cannot reject or amend the bill. Okay, then the Rajya Sabha must return the bill to Lok Sabha within 14 days. Okay, this is very important. If the Rajya Sabha, it has two options, right? One to accept or to make some recommendation. But within 14 days, the Rajya Sabha should react, it should respond. If the Rajya Sabha is not making any move in these 14 days, automatically this bill is considered to be passed in Rajya Sabha. Okay, already the Lok Sabha has passed the bill. Now the Rajya Sabha is passed the bill. It is considered as the Rajya Sabha passed the bill. So within 14 days, with or without making any recommendation. So with any recommendation, it can respond, or without any recommendation also, the Rajya Sabha can respond. It's up to Rajya Sabha, and it's up to Lok Sabha whether to accept the recommendation or not. But the Rajya Sabha should, respond within 15 days. Agar the Rajya Sabha is not responding, then it is considered that the bill is automatically passed in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Then the Lok Sabha can accept or reject any recommendations made by the Rajya Sabha. So it's up to the Lok Sabha whether to accept or reject that particular recommendation. If the Lok Sabha accepts any recommendation, then the bill is deemed to be have been passed by both the houses in the modified form. So let us say the Lok Sabha has transmitted this money bill to the Rajya Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha has made certain recommendations. Then what happens is, on this Lok Sabha, it accepted those recommendations. In that case, this modified version of this bill is considered to be passed by the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. But when in the case of Lok Sabha, you can see here, when Lok Sabha is not accepting the recommendation, if the Lok Sabha does not accept the recommendation made by the Rajya Sabha, the bill is deemed to have passed by both the houses in the form of originally passed by the Lok Sabha without any modification. So what they are saying is, let us say in the other case, the Rajya Sabha has made some recommendation and the Lok Sabha does not accept those recommendations. In that case, what happens is, this bill, which was originally passed by the Lok Sabha, will be considered as passed in both the houses, not the modified version. The original version is considered as the, considered as the bill which is passed by both the houses. Then, if the Rajya Sabha does not return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days, the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the houses in the originally passed form by the Lok Sabha. So let us say the 14 days period is gone, it's over, and the Rajya Sabha did not respond, it did not make any recommendation, or it made any recommendation, but it is not at all responding. Okay, the Rajya Sabha does not pass the bill within 14 days, then what will happen? Then it is considered that this bill has been passed by both the houses in the original form. Okay, the original form of the bill is considered to have been passed in both the houses. Then the Lok Sabha has more powers than the Rajya Sabha with this regard to the money bills. Yes, Whenever we are talking about the money bill, the Lok Sabha has the upper hand compared to the Rajya Sabha, because we have many provisions which the Lok Sabha has. Special powers the Lok Sabha has. What are they? One is the money bill can only be introduced in Lok Sabha. You can't introduce the money bill in the Rajya Sabha. Okay, that is one point. Then the second point is, the after transmitting the money bill from the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha cannot reject or amend the money bill. It can only make recommendation, and it is up to the Lok Sabha whether to accept the recommendation or not. And there is another provision also, within 14 days the Rajya Sabha has to respond. If it is crossing the 14 days, then the Rajya Sabha has no options. Then what will happen? This bill will be considered to be passed in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Then, when a money bill is presented to the president, he may give or withhold his assent to the bill, but he cannot return the bill for reconsideration. Yes, this is there. Why? Because the money bill, it has already been presented in the Lok Sabha with a prior permission taken from the president. Okay, before introducing the bill itself in the Lok Sabha, the money bill requires the, what do you say, prior permission from the president. Okay, that's why the president, after being passed in both the houses, he has only two options. One, to give assent to the bill, or he can withhold the bill. He cannot send the bill for reconsideration. Usually, in case of ordinary bill, the president has three options, right? One is to give assent, one is to, send it for reconsideration, and the third option would be to withhold the assent. But in this case, in case of money bill, the president has only two, options. What are they? One, to give the assent, or to withhold the assent. He cannot send it for reconsideration. So this is there. Then the president normally gives the assent to the money bill as it is introduced in the parliament with his prior permission. Yes, this is true, because this money bill is usually, not usually, every time it is compulsory, it is obligatory that it should need a prior permission from the president before the introduction of the bill in the Lok Sabha. So usually the president gives the permission, right? Then only this bill is introduced in the Lok Sabha. So usually what happens is, the president in most of the cases will give the assent to the money bill. He will not withhold the assent. Then the next question, which of the following are the exclusive powers of Lok Sabha? Statement 1, to ratify the declaration of emergency. Statement 2, to pass a motion of no confidence against the Council of Ministers. Statement 3, to impeach the President of India. So if you see here, what they are asking is, they are asking what are the exclusive powers of Lok Sabha here. So if you see, the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in most of the cases have equal powers. Okay, but there are some cases in which the Lok Sabha has a special power. The Lok Sabha has an exclusive power, and in some cases the Rajya Sabha has some exclusive powers. Okay, in this question they are asking what are the exclusive powers available to Lok Sabha. So if you see, the first statement is ratification of declaration of emergency. So if you see, whenever the emergency, the president declares the emergency, then the parliament should ratify this emergency, right, within 1 month. But in both the cases, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have equal power in particular, this particular provision. The Lok Sabha does not have any special power, or the Rajya Sabha does not have any special power regarding the declaration, ratification of the emergency. So we can say this is not the exclusive power of the Lok Sabha. We can eliminate this option. Then statement 2, to pass a motion of no confidence against the Council of Ministers. So whenever we read about this no confidence motion, okay, we know this, the no confidence motion can only be passed in the Lok Sabha. The no confidence motion cannot be passed in the Rajya Sabha. Okay, this is the basic fact. So we can say this particular thing is a exclusive power given to the Lok Sabha, because this power is not available to the Rajya Sabha, right? So we can say yes, this power is an exclusive power given to the Lok Sabha. Then the impeachment of the president. So whenever the impeachment process takes place for the president, who can take part in the process? Tell me. We read this in the topic president, vice president, and governor. Okay, one of the previous video. I think the last video. So the thing is, whenever the impeachment process takes place, who and all can take part in the process? Who are they? The first would be the members of Lok Sabha, and the second would be the members of Rajya Sabha. Okay, in this case, there is no condition that only the elected members can take part in the impeachment. No, both elected members or nominated members can take part in the impeachment process. And what we can say is both the houses, both Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha has a equal power here. Okay, there is no differentiation or no house has a exclusive power in this particular case. The impeachment of the president, in this case, both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha has a equal power. So we can eliminate this option. So what is the correct answer? Answer is B, only 2. So the next question, with reference to the Deputy Speaker of Lok Sabha, consider the following statements. As per the rules of procedure and conduct of business in Lok Sabha, the election of Deputy Speaker shall be held on such date as the Speaker may fix. Statement 2. There is a mandatory provision that the election of a candidate as a Deputy Speaker of Lok Sabha shall be from either the principal opposition party or the ruling party. Then third statement is the Deputy Speaker has the same powers as of the Speaker when presiding over the sitting of the House, and no appeal lies against his ruling. Statement 4. The well-established parliamentary practice regarding the appointment of the Deputy Speaker is that the motion is moved by the Speaker and duly seconded by the Prime Minister. So if you see here, this question is talking about the Deputy Speaker, and the first statement says, as per the rules of procedure and the conduct of business in Lok Sabha, the election of Deputy Speaker shall be held on such date as the Speaker may fix. Yes, this is true. Whenever the first session happens and the first meeting is happening, there will be first appointing a pro tem speaker. Okay, pro tem speaker is usually the senior most member of that particular house. And then what happens? They will be first electing the speaker. Okay, once the speaker is been elected, this speaker will be fixing a date for the election of the deputy speaker. Okay, so this statement is correct. Yes, according to the rules of procedure and conduct of business in Lok Sabha, the deputy speaker's election will be fixed by the speaker of Lok Sabha. Then there is a mandatory provision that the election of the candidate as deputy speaker of Lok Sabha shall be from either the principal opposition party or the ruling party. The thing is, there is no mandatory provision. Okay, if you see, there is no mandatory provision that the deputy speaker must be appointed from the ruling party or the opposition party. We can actually eliminate this option. Then the third statement is the deputy speaker has the same powers as the speaker when presiding over the sitting of the house, and no appeal lies against his rulings. Yes, this is true. Why? If you see, the deputy speaker is not a post which is subordinate to the speaker. Okay, the deputy speaker post is actually there. Why? Whenever there is a vacant in the speaker's post. Okay, or let's say the speaker's post is absent. Okay, when the speaker is not able to perform his duties, then what will happen? Then they'll call the deputy speaker. This deputy speaker will be presiding the house. Okay, so we can say that this deputy speaker is not a subordinate for the speaker, and this deputy speaker is directly responsible to the Lok Sabha. Okay, it is an individual post, and whenever this deputy speaker is presiding the house, he has the same powers as the speaker. Okay, he is considered as a speaker. He is not considered as a deputy speaker whenever he is presiding the house. Okay, then there is no appeal lies against his ruling. Yes, this is true. Okay, whenever he is acting as a speaker, he has the same powers of the speaker. So against his ruling, there is no appeal. Okay, this statement is correct. Then fourth statement is the well-defined parliamentary practice regarding the appointment of the deputy speaker is that the motion is moved by the speaker and duly seconded by the prime minister. So if you see here, there is no well established parliamentary practice for, for this thing. What is this? The appointment of the deputy speaker in that motion is moved by the speaker and duly seconded by the prime minister. No, there is no well defined parliamentary practice like this. So we can actually eliminate this option. So what would be the correct answer? 1, 3. So option A is the correct answer. So if you see here, yes, the constitutional provision with respect to the office of deputy speaker. So the Article 93 of the Indian Constitution says that the House of the People. What is the House of People? The Lok Sabha. So the Lok Sabha shall choose 2 members of the House to be respectively Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. Yes, Article 93, it talks about the both Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. So in the Lok Sabha, among the members of the Lok Sabha, they have to choose 2 members. Choose matlab to elect. Okay, through election among the members itself. So they'll be selecting one member as a speaker and another as a deputy speaker. Okay, then the article also says that when the office of speaker or deputy speaker becomes vacant, the house shall choose another member to be speaker or deputy speaker. Let's say whenever the post of speaker or deputy speaker becomes vacant, then the house will be choosing another member to be speaker or deputy speaker. Then election of the deputy speaker. So as I already said you, both the speaker and the deputy speaker, they are chosen by the election. Okay, election held in the house among the members itself, and whoever is elected as a speaker and a deputy speaker, they'll be done through the election process. Okay, choosing means election. Okay, then so like the speaker, the deputy speaker is also elected by the Lok Sabha itself from among its members. He is elected after the election of the speaker has taken place, and the date of election is usually fixed by the speaker. Okay, then the term of office, like the speaker, the deputy speaker remains in the office usually during the life of the Lok Sabha. However, he may vacate his office earlier in any of the following 3 cases. What are these 3 cases? If he ceases to be a member of Lok Sabha itself. So the thing is, for both speaker and the deputy speaker, let's say their Lok Sabha membership itself is ceased. They are not no longer they are a member of Lok Sabha. Then this particular post, the deputy speaker's post or the speaker's post, will become vacant. Okay. Then if he resigns by writing to the speaker, so the deputy speaker can resign by writing to the speaker. Then the third point is, if he is removed by a resolution passed by majority of all the then members of the Lok Sabha. Such a resolution can moved only after giving 14 days notice. So this resolution, the removal resolution for the removal of deputy speaker will be passed in the Lok Sabha, and how much majority is needed? The majority of then members of the house. Okay, in the Lok Sabha. So once this removal resolution is passed, then the deputy speaker will be removed from his post. Okay, these are the 3 cases when his office, the office of deputy speaker, will become vacant. Okay, it is similar to the office of speaker, and as you can see here, the deputy speaker will be usually what happens is whenever they'll be staying in the office till the life of the Lok Sabha, and they will not immediately vacate the office once the Lok Sabha is dissolved. Okay, they'll wait till the next election happens, then the next meeting of the Lok Sabha happens, then they will be vacating their office, both speaker and deputy speaker. They will not vacate immediately once the Lok Sabha is dissolved. Then the role or power of deputy speaker. The deputy speaker performs the duties of the speaker office when it is vacant. So whenever the speaker's office is vacant, or let's say he is absent, this deputy speaker will be performing the duties of the speaker. Okay. So he also acts as a speaker when the leader is absent. So whenever absent or vacant, the speaker is absent or the post of speaker is vacant, the deputy speaker will be acting as the speaker. Okay, and he will be having the same powers of the speaker. Whenever the deputy speaker is acting as a speaker, he'll be having all the powers which are given to the speaker. Okay, then the deputy speaker is not a subordinate to the speaker and he is directly responsible to the house. As I already told you, the deputy speaker's post is not considered as a subordinate post to the speaker. If you see this particular post, deputy speaker's post is directly responsible to the Lok Sabha. Okay, then he also presides over the joint sitting of both the houses of parliament in case the speaker is absent. So we all know that whenever there is a joint sitting, who will be presiding this meeting? The speaker of Lok Sabha will be presiding the joint sitting, right? But let us say the speaker, its office is vacant, or let's say the speaker is absent. In that particular case, the deputy speaker will be presiding the joint sitting. Okay, then the deputy speaker has one special privilege. What is this special privilege? Whenever he is appointed as a member of any parliamentary committee, he automatically becomes a chairman. We read about this parliamentary committees, right? So whenever this particular deputy speaker is part of any parliamentary committee, okay, is a member of any parliamentary committee, he will automatically became the chairman of that particular parliamentary committee. This is a special privilege which our deputy speaker has. Then, when the speaker presides over the house, the deputy speaker is like any other ordinary member of the house. He can speak, he can participate in its proceedings and vote on any question before the house. So, let us say in a normal case, the speaker is going to be presiding the house. In that case, the deputy speaker is considered as a normal member, any other member. He'll be sitting in the house. He'll be taking part in its proceedings and he'll be voting whenever the time comes for him to vote. As a normal member, he'll be not having any special privileges. Okay. Then next question, with reference to anti-defection law in India, consider the following statements. Statement 1. The law specifies that a nominated legislator cannot join any political party within 6 months of being appointed to the House. Statement 2. The law does not provide any time frame within which the presiding officer has to decide a defection case. So this question is directly talking about the anti-defection law. And you may all know what is this anti-defection law. This anti-defection law is basically to prevent the politicians from changing the parties again and again. They will keep on jumping from one party to another party, right? The politicians. So to prevent this particular thing, the anti-defection law, this law is there. They have come up with this law. And if you see in the first statement, what they are saying is the law specifies that nominated legislator cannot join any political party within 6 months of the period, 6 months of the appointment in the house. The thing is, if you see, whenever the nominated members, he's being appointed as a member of parliament, he has the option. If he want within 6 months of period, he can join any political party. As you know, the nominated members, when they are being appointed, they are nominated, right? They are not elected. So they do not belong to any particular political party. So what will happen? The Constitution of India, or we have given some power or some option to him within 6 months of the time period, within 6 months of being elected, he can join any political party which he wants. Okay. But after 6 months, he cannot join any political party. This is what the Constitution of India says. But if you see here, the law specifies that nominated legislature cannot join the political party within 6 months. Is that true? Is that so? No. Within 6 months, he can join any political party. After 6 months, he cannot join any political party. So this statement would be or wrong statement, then the law does not provide any time frame within which the presiding officer has to decide a defection case. Yes, you may all know that whenever there is a defection case, the speaker has to make that particular what you say decision, and there is no time frame given to the speaker, like within which you have to decide this case. Okay, so this particular statement is a correct statement. There is no time frame which has been provided under the anti-defection law. So the answer would be B, only two. The anti-defection law in India was enacted in 1985 through the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1985. Okay, 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. As a part of 10th schedule of the Constitution of India, this particular anti-defection law has been added in the 10th schedule of the Constitution. The anti-defection law aimed to prevent or discourage defection by imposing penalties on the politicians who switch parties or otherwise violate the party discipline. So there are two objectives here. One is whoever the politicians who are switching the political parties now and there, to prevent that, and the another objective is to maintain the party discipline. So one of the provision is whenever the party whip gives a he gives any what do you say, any directions, then the members of this particular political party, they have to what do you say, accept that decision. They can't go against the decision of the political party's head. And let's say the political party is telling to vote on particular cause or not to vote in any particular cause, then the members who are belonging to that particular political party, they have to listen to this particular uh, political party's head. They can't go against the head of the political party. So this is to maintain the discipline of the political parties. Okay. So then these laws may be designed to ensure that politicians are held accountable to the voters who elected them, and to maintain the stability and cohesion of the political party. Yes, let us say one of the provision is whenever independent member gets elected. Who are these independent members? These independent members does not belong to any political party. Whenever these independent members, after getting elected, they should always be independent. They can never join any political party. Okay. And let's say whenever a member of parliament who belongs to any ABC political party, after getting elected, he cannot change the political party. Okay. Because of this thing, it is helping them to be accountable to the people who have elected them. Okay, if you see most of the people who vote for a particular person, not just because of that particular person, they'll be voting for him because he belonged to this particular political party. Okay, so these people are actually voting for the parties and not for the actual person. So whenever after getting elected you are trying to change the political party, it will actually nullify the cause, and it will be the people who are actually what they want, which political party they want, it is going against the will of the people. So to make these members of parliament or members of state legislature, to make these members to be accountable to the people who have given oaths to them. Okay, so they can't keep on changing political party after getting elected. Okay, this is the thing. Then the next question, consider the following statement. Statement 1, the president of India can summon a session of the parliament such a place as he thinks fit. Statement 2, the Constitution of India provides for 3 sessions of the parliament in a year, but it is not mandatory to conduct all 3 sessions. Statement 3, there is no minimum number of days that the parliament is required to meet in a year. So we see here the first statement says the President of India can summon a session of Parliament wherever or whichever time he may thinks is correct. Yes, this is true. This is what is directly mentioned in the Constitution of India. the president can call for the summon the sessions of the parliament, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, wherever place or whichever time which he thinks is fit. Okay, that is correct. Then statement 2, the Constitution of India provides for 3 sessions of the parliament in a year, but it is not mandatory to conduct all the 3 sessions. So if you see here, the Constitution of India does not actually mention any particular thing like this, like 3 sessions. It is mandatory to conduct the 3 sessions. No, the Constitution of India does not, mention any of these things. So we can eliminate this option. Then you may ask, usually we have this 3 sessions, right? And if it is not mentioned in the Constitution, why we are following it? It is followed by a, by every year they are following it. What we can say, by convention, by parliamentary convention, we are following this thing, like to have a 3 session, the budget session, the monsoon session, and the winter session. So this is by parliamentary convention, not because it is mentioned in the Constitution of India. Okay, so we can eliminate this option. Statement 3, there is no minimum number of days that the parliament is required to meet in a year. Yes, this is true. There is no minimum number of days that is mentioned in the Constitution for, the parliament session. This statement is correct. So what would be the correct answer? 1, 3, option C is the correct answer. Then Article 85 of the Constitution, it states that the president shall from time to time summon each house of the parliament to meet at such time and place as he thinks fit. So whichever place or time which the president thinks fit, he can summon the houses of the parliament. The sessions of the Lok Sabha is called for at least 2 times in a year. Okay, Lok Sabha session should be conducted at least for 2 sessions. Okay, this is there. Then the Constitution does not state that 3 sessions of the parliament should be called in a year. This is actually being followed by the parliamentary convention, not because it is being given in the Constitution. There is no provision of the minimum number of days that the parliament is required to meet in a year. Yes, there is no provision, or there is no requirement of minimum number of years the parliament has to meet in a year. India does not have a fixed parliamentary calendar. Okay, in case of India, we don't have any fixed parliamentary calendar. And by convention, the parliament meets 3 sessions in a year, and the longest session would be the budget session. So as I already told you, the 3 sessions we have, one is the budget session, one is the monsoon session, and the winter session. So the longest session is the budget session. It starts towards the end of the January and concludes by the end of the April or the first week of the May. Then Rajya Sabha has equal powers with Lok Sabha in the matter of creating new All India services. B, amending the constitution. C, removal of the government. And D, making cut motion. So if you see here, they are asking about the equal powers of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. As I already told you, there are some powers, most of the powers which the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, they have equal powers. And in some cases, the Lok Sabha has a special power, exclusive power, which the Rajya Sabha does not have that power. And in some cases, the Rajya Sabha has a special power, exclusive power, which the Lok Sabha does not have. Okay, they are asking about the equal powers here. If you see, option A, the matter of creating All India services. You might have read this in the special powers of Rajya Sabha. This is one of the special powers given to the Rajya Sabha. Whenever the Rajya Sabha is actually passing a resolution for creation of a new, All India services, then they can create a new All India services which is common to both center and the state. And this power is an exclusive power given to the Rajya Sabha, and the Lok Sabha does not have this power. So this is not an equal power. Okay, we can eliminate this option. Then amending the Constitution of India. So whenever there is the amendment procedure which is happening, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, they have equal power. There is no condition, there is no special power given to Lok Sabha or no special power given to Rajya Sabha. Both are considered, they both have equal powers. So this is one of the option which has the equal power for Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And if you see option C, the removal of government. So the removal of government is nothing but passing of no confidence motion. Okay, whenever the no confidence motion has been passed, then what will happen? The government will be removed. Simple. So this no confidence motion can only be passed in the Lok Sabha and it cannot be passed in the Rajya Sabha. We know this. Okay. So we can say this particular provision is a special power given to the Lok Sabha. This power does not is there with the Rajya Sabha. So this is not a correct answer. Then making cut motions. These cut motions, these are the motions which are used in the budget. You know, whenever the budget is going to pass, the vote for grants and the motions, cut motions, these happens in the Lok Sabha. Okay, this is a special privilege given to Lok Sabha. It is not happening in the Rajya Sabha. Okay, so we can eliminate this option as well because it is a special provision given to the Lok Sabha. So the correct answer would be B, option B. Then equal powers and status of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. So as I told you, majority of the cases, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, they have equal powers. We'll be seeing few of the powers where there is, equal power given to both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. First is introduction and passage of ordinary bill. So whenever there is a passage of ordinary bill, the procedure, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they have equal powers. No house does not have any special provision here. So this is one of the provision where both the houses have equal powers. Then introduction and passage of constitutional amendment bill. Just like an ordinary bill, the constitutional amendment bills are also, in case of constitutional amendment bills also, the both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they have equal powers. But introduction and passage of finance bills involving expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India. Again, the powers of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they have equal powers. Then, election and impeachment of the president. So, when we talk about the election of the president, we know that who are the part of electoral college. One, we have elected members of Lok Sabha. Then we have elected members of Rajya Sabha. And also we have the elected MLAs of the state legislative assemblies. Third, we have elected MLAs of the state legislative assembly along with the union territories of Delhi and Puducherry. Okay, only the elected members. There is no nominated members. But if you see here, the elected members of Lok Sabha and the elected members of Rajya Sabha, they both are participating in the election of the president. There is no discrimination between the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Even though the nominated members are not participating here, both the nominated members from the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, they are not participating. So in this case, in the election of president, both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha have equal powers. No one house has given any special power. And in case of impeachment of the president, who will be taking part in the impeachment process? One, the members of Lok Sabha, all members, like elected members and the nominated members, all members of Lok Sabha and all members of Rajya Sabha, both elected and nominated. So both the members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they are going to participate in the impeachment process. And here also there is no discrimination between the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. In this case, both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, they have equal powers. No one has a special power. So these are some of the cases where the both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they have equal powers. And if you see here, the special powers of Lok Sabha. So as I told you, there are some cases where the Lok Sabha has been given special powers. One such case is a money bill. As we already saw, this money bill can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha and money bill cannot be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. This is the first point which you have to remember. And regarding the money bill, there is also another provision which we read in the one of the previous question, that once the Lok Sabha transferred the bill to the Rajya Sabha, then the Rajya Sabha has only it can make recommendation or it can accept the bill, but it cannot send it back. It cannot reject the bill or it cannot make amendments to the bill. So in case of a money bill, the Lok Sabha has the upper hand compared to the Rajya Sabha. Then the Speaker of Lok Sabha presides over the joint sitting of both the houses. As we already saw, whenever this joint sitting is happening, only the Speaker of Lok Sabha is going to preside the joint sitting. Joint sitting matlab both the members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they are being, collectively, they are discussing the disagreement which happened in any ordinary bill. Then, who is going to preside this particular house, the joint sitting? This is going to be presided by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. So, the Lok Sabha has the upper hand. Whenever the Speaker of Lok Sabha is absent or the post is vacant, who will be presiding the joint sitting? The deputy speaker, and he is also belonging to the Lok Sabha. So the deputy speaker will be presiding the joint sitting when the speaker is absent or his post is vacant. Okay, so the Lok Sabha has the upper hand. Then Rajya Sabha can only discuss the budget but cannot vote on the demands for grant. That's what I was saying. Okay, whenever this budget is going to be passed for the demand of grants, only the Lok Sabha members, only the Lok Sabha can vote for the demand of grants. The Rajya Sabha can discuss, but it cannot vote, it cannot participate in the voting process. Okay, so again, the Lok Sabha has the upper hand. Then Rajya Sabha cannot remove the Council of Ministers by passing the no confidence motion. The no confidence motion can only be passed in the Lok Sabha and it cannot be passed in the Rajya Sabha, even though the ministers belong to any, Rajya Sabha. It doesn't mean that the no confidence motion will be passed in the Rajya Sabha. The no confidence motion can only be passed in the Lok Sabha. Then, this is because the Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. We always say that the Council of Ministers are directly responsible to the Lok Sabha. In a general sense, we may say the Council of Ministers are responsible to the Parliament. It is a very general statement. When you talk specifically, the Council of Ministers are specifically, responsible to the Lok Sabha only. They are not responsible to the Rajya Sabha. Okay, this is there. Then, the special powers of Rajya Sabha. As we already saw, there are some special powers which are given to the Lok Sabha and there are some special powers now given to the Rajya Sabha also. What are these? It can authorize the Parliament to make law on a subject enumerated in the state list. So this is one of the special power given to the Rajya Sabha. We all know we have the state list, we have the union list and we have concurrent list. And state list is a domain for state legislature. Only the state government can make a law in the state list. And let's say we have union list. Only the union government can make a law in the union list. And we have concurrent list, both state government and the union government can make law. So the thing is, in case of state list, the central government cannot come in and make law from the state list. And in case of union list, the state governments, they are not authorized to make law from the union list. So they'll be acting or they'll be making laws in their own domain. They'll be not coming and interrupting in another, another's work. So, but there is one exception, that is whenever the Rajya Sabha authorizes the parliament, then the parliament can make law from a state list. Why this power is given to Rajya Sabha? Why not Lok Sabha? Think about it. Because the Lok Sabha, they are directly elected by the people, they are representing the people of India. But in case of Rajya Sabha, they are actually being elected by the states. So the Rajya Sabha, the members of Rajya Sabha are directly representing the state government. Okay, the Rajya Sabha members are directly representing the state governments. That's why to make any law in the state government, to authorize the parliament to make law from the state list, that power is given to the Rajya Sabha and not to the Lok Sabha. Then it can authorize the parliament to create all India services common to both the center and the state. So this is one of the point we saw in the question, that whenever the parliament want to create any new all India services which is common to both state and the central government, then the authorization will be given by the Rajya Sabha. So this is one of the special provision which special power which the Rajya Sabha has. Then the resolution for the removal of the vice president, can be introduced only in Rajya Sabha and not in the Lok Sabha. Tell me why. Why the resolution for the removal of vice president is only be introduced in the Rajya Sabha or only be passed in the Rajya Sabha? Why not in Lok Sabha? Because the vice president is, who is the president? He is the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, right? So he belongs to the Rajya Sabha. So whenever they want to remove the vice president or whenever they want to remove the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, they have to move a resolution. The removal resolution should be passed only in the Rajya Sabha. It cannot be passed in Lok Sabha. Okay. But you might have read that Rajya Sabha, the then members of the House, effective majority, and Lok Sabha will be passing with simple majority. In both the houses, the resolution is passed. No, that's not right. When if you are reading that way, it's wrong actually. Because I'll tell you why. Because let's say the resolution will be introduced in Rajya Sabha only, and this resolution will be passed in Rajya Sabha only with the effective majority. This is correct. But this resolution is not at all passed in the Lok Sabha. Why? Because the Lok Sabha, they are only going to support the resolution. They are going to approve this resolution. They are not passing this resolution. Once this resolution is passed in the Rajya Sabha, then the Lok Sabha will approve this particular resolution. It will not pass the resolution. This resolution is already passed in the Rajya Sabha. Now the Lok Sabha is just approving the resolution with the simple majority. Okay. So if there is a question statement comes and they have clearly mentioned that the resolution for removal of vice president can only be passed in the Rajya Sabha. It is correct. Yes, it is only passed in the Rajya Sabha, not in the Lok Sabha. Because Lok Sabha is not passing the resolution, it is approving the resolution or supporting the resolution. Okay, simple. Then, next question. With reference to the funds under Members of Parliament Local Area Development Scheme, MP LADS, which of the following statements are correct? MP LADS funds must be used to create durable assets like physical infrastructure for health, education, etc. Statement 2. A specified portion of each MP's fund must benefit SC/ST population. Statement 3. MP LADS funds are sanctioned on a yearly basis and unused funds cannot be carried forward to the next year. Statement 4. The district authority must inspect at least 10% of all works under the implementation every year. So, first statement, basically this question is talking about the MP LAD scheme. And what is this MP LAD scheme? In simple terms, each MP, member of parliament, will be allocated certain fund. Let's say for a year, they'll be given 5 crores. So, what will happen is this MPs will be, allocating this particular fund to any special assets for building any durable asset, especially on those sectors of education, health, etc. Okay, so this is basically the MP LAD scheme. So the first statement says the MP LADS fund must be used to create durable assets like physical infrastructure for health, education, etc. Yes, this is true. MP LAD scheme, the main objective is this only, to create durable assets in the constituencies by the MPs. Then second statement, a specified portion of each MP's fund must benefit SC/ST population. Yes, this is true. It is clearly been mentioned that the fund, every year 5 crore is allocated to any particular MP. Then certain percentage, to be specific, for SCs it is 15 percentage and for STs it is 7.5 percentage. So these percentage of the fund should be spent on these particular population. It has been clearly mentioned in the scheme itself. So we can say this statement is also correct. Then MP LADS fund are sanctioned on a yearly basis. Yes, it is sanctioned in a yearly basis. Every year 5 crore is given to a, not directly given to a MP, but allocated for a MP. Okay. Then, and the unused funds cannot be carried forward to the next year. Yes, this is a wrong statement. Why? Because even though it is allocated every year, each year, but whenever there is some unused funds, let's say 1 crore is remaining They spent only the 4 crore, only 4 crore, and 1 crore is remaining. Then this 1 crore will be carry forward to the next year. Okay, so this statement will be wrong. Then, fourth statement, the district authority must inspect at least 10 percentage of all the works under the implementation every year. Yes, this is true. And the district authorities, as we might have read, if you are not read, I'll tell you. In this case, the MP large scheme, whenever the fund allocation is happening, these funds are not directly given in the hands of the MPs. Rather, these funds are directly dispersed from the central government to the district authorities. You would be part of the district authority in the future, right? So it would be allocated to you, and you will be the district authorities would be dispersing this fund. It is not directly given in the hands of the members of parliament MP. Okay, what is the duty of this MP then? The thing is, he'll only prescribe or he'll only tell you which assets you have to build, or which area you have to do these particular physical assets. Okay, this is the only power which he has. He can only prescribe, or he can only tell you what are the things which he want to do. He can't directly do it. And the implementation, the fund, allocation, everything is done by the district authority. So the district authority must inspect at least 10 percentage of the works done in a particular year. Okay. So this statement is the correct statement. The correct answer would be 1, 2 and 4. Option D is the correct answer. So the members of parliament local area development scheme, it is an ongoing central sector scheme which is launched in the year 1993 to 1994. The objective of the scheme is the scheme enables the members of parliament to recommend works for creation of durable assets based on the locally felt needs taken up in the constituency in the area of national priority, namely drinking water, education, public health, sanitation, roads, etc. Yes, only the MPs can only recommend certain projects. He can recommend, okay, do this, do that, in education or in health or whatever he wants, okay, sanitation, and which area he want to make this project. But apart from that, he does not have the power for funds allocation or anything. Okay, even the implementation is done by the district authorities. Under the scheme, annual MP LATS fund entitled per MP is 5 crore. So the Lok Sabha members can recommend works within their constituency. So you might know that the Lok Sabha members are directly, representing the constituency because they are being elected from the constituency. So for the Lok Sabha members, elected members, what they can do, they can directly, spend that money in the development of that particular constituency which he belongs. Okay. Then the Rajya Sabha members, you might know they are not directly representing any constituency, right? But they are representing any particular state, right? So in that case, what will happen is the elected members of the Rajya Sabha, they can recommend the work in one or more districts in state, the state which they belong to, okay, where he has been elected. Okay, let's say the Rajya Sabha member has been elected from a state Tamil Nadu, let's say. Okay, so he will be choosing any one or two districts and he will be spending money, or not spending directly money, he will be prescribing, he will be, telling the district authority to perform these activities. Okay, he can recommend. Then, what is the case of nominated members? We talked about the elected members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Now, what is the case of nominated members? Because they are not directly representing any constituency or any state, right? So, in that case of nominated members of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they select one or more districts from any state. Okay, it does not mean that their birth state, they have to choose the birth state. No, they can choose any state which they want, and they can choose one or two districts and they can perform their activities there. Then the MPs are to recommend every year works costing at least 15% of the MP LAT scheme. Let us say the 5 crore is allocated for a particular one MP. At least 15% he has to, recommend the works He can't like minimum 15 percentage he has to recommend. This is a mandatory provision. Then, and this thing here, the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribal population, they are specifically given, certain percentage. For scheduled caste 15 percentage, for scheduled tribe 7.5 percentage. At least this much amount should be allocated to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. This is also there in the scheme itself. Then in case of an elected MP wishes to contribute to any other constituency, let's say an elected MP, he belongs to any particular constituency, but he want to, contribute to any other constituency, not just his constituency, then in that case, what the provision they have given is up to 25 lakh in a financial year. In a particular year, he can contribute up to 25 lakhs to another constituency also. There is no issue. Then the MPs do not directly receive the fund. This is the most important point. Let us say if you are directly giving the money to the MPs, you know what will happen, right? So they are not directly giving the money to the MPs. What they are doing is they are going to allocate the fund. The central government will be allocating the fund to the district authorities, and the MP has only one job to do, that is to recommend what are the physical assets he want to make in that particular area, in which sector he want to do education or sanitation or health or whatever. So he can only recommend what are the jobs which have to be done within that 5 crore. He does not receive any money in his hand, and the center directly transfers the sanctioned amount in two installments. So we saw that in 1 year they'll be getting 5 crore, right? So this particular amount is being sanctioned in two installments, 2.5 crore and 2.5 crore, by the central government directly to the district authorities. Then district authority of the concerned MP's nodal district, after a recommended project gets approved. Then implementation. The role of MP is however limited to the recommendation of the project. Matlab, the MPs can only recommend the project. He can't do anything like not participate in the implementation or not participate in the fund allocation. And the honors of the on the district authority to sanction, execute and complete the recommended project within a particular time frame. So everything is done by the district authority. Okay. So if you are being part of the district authority in the future, you will be doing this, right? Then the nodal ministry, the Ministry of Statistics and the program implementation, has been responsible for policy formulation and the release of funds and prescribing monitoring mechanism for the implementation of the scheme. So with that, we have come with the end of this video. We have covered this topic, and I would say we have not completed this topic. We'll be doing a continuation, part 2 of this particular topic, and we'll try to cover this topic. Thank you, students.